What's up, everybody? This is Austin here from Gaming Entertainment Network, and today we're going to be taking a look at Google Stadia. This is a service that came out in November of 2019, and it was largely irrelevant to gamers. And what this service tried to do was bring gaming to a different set of people, and it was mostly unsuccessful in doing that, because of publishers, because of, lack of games. Nobody was willing to support this because it seemed very risky, and Google doesn't have a good track record for taking big risks for a long period of time. So nobody was sure if the service was even going to stay. By far, the biggest complaint was that Google overpromised and underdelivered, and we've seen this plenty of times, especially in the game streaming space, where people will cite things like horrible compression or terrible frame rate or really bad latency, and in the case of Google Stadia, the graphics not being as good as they were supposed to be. Although it wasn't clear, it seems like the market that Google was going for was possibly console gamers, or even people that just maybe mobile gamers, people that wanted a versatile way to play, and cloud gaming seemed to be the solution. Anybody who's followed this channel for a while knows that I'm pretty well versed in cloud gaming. I was a very early adopter of OnLive whenever that service came out, and I did a bunch of reviews on this channel for cloud gaming stuff back in, I think, 2011 or 2012, something like that. But now we have services like PlayStation Now, we got Project X Cloud, we got Google Stadia now, and of these, that I haven't listed yet, my favorite has actually been Shadow. There's a service called Shadow that's pretty much a Windows 10 desktop, and you can do other things other than gaming if you wanted to do production stuff, things like that. It's just a cloud desktop environment, and it works great for gaming. The latency is hardly noticeable. If you have a moderate connection, I've throttled mine down to like 50 megabits per second, and it works flawlessly. I can play all my PC games, no problem. So my goal for today's video is to revisit Google Stadia, doing it on a Wi-Fi connection, a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection, and testing out the games. And I have a lot of these games already on Steam, so what I want to do is bounce back and forth between playing it locally and playing it on the cloud, and seeing the differences. I know there will be differences, I know there will be latency. The problem, or the question, is how much. And my internet recently got upgraded to 200 megabits per second, and if I do a speed test, I can get about 220 megabits per second. And I've only ever tried cloud gaming services on about 100 megabits per second. Like I said, I have throttled Shadow down to like 50 or 60 and had flawless results. So if this doesn't work, I do not think it's a bandwidth problem. I think it's a Google problem, because there is a service that has got this right. I've done Project X Cloud, and it works okay. I wouldn't trust it for competitive games. I would totally trust Shadow with competitive games. It is that good. So enough talking. I'm going to jump into Stadia and try out a few games and share my thoughts, and let you know what I think this service is like in mid-2020. So the first game I'm going into is one of the ones that was promoted with Google Stadia, and that is Destiny 2. Just walking around here, the graphics look fine. I'm not entirely sure if they're better than they were when this launched. Moving the mouse around, tiny bit of latency. I'm gonna run down here and go fight something. I'm not noticing any horrible compression or anything like that. The worst thing is definitely just the input lag, but even that's pretty minimal. I do feel like I'm slightly less accurate than I would be if I was, just playing this on my computer. But this is definitely a lot more passable than it was whenever I initially tried out Stadia. The next thing I want to do is try out a racing game, because with cloud services, that's usually the test, is how well you can handle yourself in a racing game. And if there's any input lag at all with a racing game, you're going to have a hard time. So we're going to try out Grid. That is offered for free for pro members on the Stadia service. So we're going to give that a go and see what happens. Now this is a game that I do have on Steam. I've played it quite a bit. I'm very fond of this game. and so I do want to see how the handling is on here. I didn't say I was good at the game. Didn't say I was good at all. Okay, the input lag is noticeable on this game. It is quite a bit harder to do maneuvers, and especially in a game like a racing game where you're doing like smaller movements, and precision really matters in a game like this, especially whenever you're doing turns and stuff like that. And I'm no pro racer or anything like that, but I do enjoy this game, and I play it on a lower difficulty relatively easily. And this is a little bit harder to do the turns, or at least a little bit harder to feel like you're in control of the turns that you're making. Like, I'm ramming into cars like nobody's business, and I would never be doing that if I was playing this locally. Next, we're going to try out basically the only fighting game in the Pro membership, at least. And I have played this one before on Xbox Game Pass. I kind of wish I hadn't, but that's that's neither here nor there. So we're going to try this out. I'm just going to do a test match. So really, I'm looking to see how responsive these moves are, especially if I'm trying to do a combo or something. I imagine playing a game like Mortal Kombat 11 would probably be a better test case for this, but this is all we have right now. I actually don't feel like my performance is hindered that much by this being on Stadia. It's actually really responsive. I'm going to pause this and say that I am noticing some compression in this game that I didn't notice in the previous two games, but whenever I'm pressing a button, I don't even notice any input lag at all. So I don't know if they're doing something on the back end to prioritize responsiveness over fidelity, but there is a tiny bit of compression that I'm seeing, but it's almost like I'm playing this one locally. I cannot tell any input lag in this game at all, so that is a good thing. So for the sake of not making this video any longer than it needs to be, I have tried a few other games on here. I've tried PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I tried Super Hot. There's a new game that they just put on here called Get Packed that I tried. And then I tried the Serious Sam Collection. And by far the best performing in terms of responsiveness, the best game on here, horribly enough, is the Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Grid was playable, but it is not the optimal way to play, obviously. None of these, no games in here are going to be the optimal way to play these games. Optimal is always going to be local, and you need to know that. But if you're willing to trade a little bit of graphical fidelity and maybe some responsiveness in order to have a more versatile experience, you might not even notice the graphical fidelity problem if you're playing on like your phone or something, or on a smaller device. So it really depends on what your needs are, but you probably already knew this coming into the video. The main thing that I wanted to comment on is if this service is better than it was when it launched, and I would say definitively yes. Is it a good service? Is it a good value proposition? No, I don't think so, but it seems like, particularly in the past couple of months, Google is trying to get more on the service. That's not a ringing endorsement for this service at all. I do not think you should buy it. I do think you should keep your eye on it, though. It does seem to be a little bit better, and I know that Google is sending out some trial codes and stuff like that. I'm not sure how they're actually going about doing that, but they're trying to get this into more people's hands to let them see that it is a better service now. And you know what? I got to give it to them. It is a heck of a lot better than it was when it launched. I do think this is way more responsive than PlayStation Now. So if you're using that service already and you're afraid that this might not be responsive enough, or it might not be as good or whatever, this is a heck of a lot better than PlayStation Now. I would put it on par with Project xCloud and the experience that I've had with that, although it's important to note that I have not tried Project xCloud since I've upgraded my internet. So I do need to go back and do that, and I'll probably make a video on that. But if you're using a service like PlayStation Now, like I said, and you're worried that this might be, you know, worse in terms of responsiveness or whatever, it's definitely not. I would have to say that PlayStation Now is now the least responsive and worst looking service that I have tried to date. So, you know, yeah, take that for what it is. If you use something like Shadow already, I would stick with Shadow. This is not on that level, and you don't have nearly the selection of games, and Shadow is really just as versatile. So yeah, this is mid-2020, and we really don't have any other new offerings in terms of cloud streaming on the horizon. So this is what we're stuck with for the foreseeable future. And I know Shadow is making moves to expand their service and you know, expand the price tiers and stuff like that to make it a little more accessible. I think the last time I tried Shadow, it was like $35 a month, and that's just not doable for a lot of people. It doesn't make financial sense. You could buy a console, you could build a computer for, you know, a year's worth of that service or whatever. So it really doesn't make sense to have that for $35 a month, unless what you're looking for is the versatility. But that's enough rambling from me. This is Stadia. This is what it is. I probably didn't show you anything you didn't already know, but it was worth noting that this is a quite a bit better service than it was when it launched, but it launched in a very crappy state. So it's basically up to par with the other offerings that we currently have for cloud gaming. And sure, like I said, that's not a ringing endorsement, but it's on par in terms of quality. Now it just needs to get there with the games. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. You know, whatever, however you feel. But nevertheless, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.